Hi, my friend. In this video, we're going to be making chill disco house synth and vocals originally inspired by artists like Dom Dolla. And we're going to find out if we can do this in under 1 hour using AI plugins to start the idea off as referencing the original track and slowly moving into something a lot more original that we can use as original song to release. So right here, we are looking at the Ableton project that we will be going over. And what we're listening to is the reference track. So this is a lot more of a chilled out sound. So if we listen to the original reference, this is Dom Dolla's Saving Up, which was originally how the song was being used as a reference. And along the way, just kind of ended up getting a lot more wild with it, adding a lot more different layers, a lot more chilled out sounds, and recreating this more chilled kind of disco sound. So this is what we'll be going over. We did use a bunch of AI plugins in this as well. So there's some unique ideas in here that we'll definitely be touching on. This took a bit longer because it ended up being a lot more of a creative, inspirational process, starting off with a reference and then evolving it into something very unique and original. And it took about an hour or so. And as you can see here, we do have a fully arranged track. It's about 6 minutes long. It's mixed, mastered, and ready to go. And it took about 6 hours in total to do all of this over the course of about 5 days, which is pretty fast. And if you need help songs finishing faster, I've also created a completely free ultimate song finishing toolkit. It includes the 5-step song finishing ebook, a collection of samples, presets, and Ableton racks that I've used in every single one of my songs, and it's how I'm able to finish songs so quickly and efficiently. And there's also a third extra special gift that you'll have to see for yourself. If you want to check it out, it's completely free. There's a link in the description or on screen now to grab all of that. And with that said, let's get into this. All right. So let's dive into this. So this is going to be an interesting one because usually what I've been doing with this video series, the idea is to reference the tracks and try to make it sound kind of similar to the original reference. In this example, I wasn't really feeling the original reference, and the goal with these is for me to always create something original that I can end up releasing. So I ended up kind of going off, and I'll show you kind of the process. So in this video, what we're really going to be doing, I should probably find a part without the vocals. So freaking nice though. Can't wait to show you how I did that. So I'm back here. So we'll get a loop going so that way there's not two voices here. But yeah, so the idea here is the inspiration I really want you to take away with is how you can use a reference track to build out your songs and make sure all of the levels are great and sounding professional, but then pivoting and starting to make your own original tune and getting a little bit more creative and making interesting choices so that you have something original that you can release. It's interesting that you can start with referencing something like that and then get to a point that's distinguishable from the original tune that you're referencing. So that's really what I hope to kind of have you take away from this. So when recreating this tune, I kind of want to show you the order in which I created things. So I'm just going to start turning off a few of these instruments here. Okay, boom. So right now what we're listening to is just the bass and the drums. And so when I was trying to recreate it, I wasn't really digging. There wasn't too much like stuff going on in the reference track. So I started kind of just getting more creative. One of the first things I added was this Rhodes. So originally I was trying to recreate the kind of Rhodes sound that was in that track, and it ended up just going for more of a chilled out vibe. So basically I just looked up a Rhodes chord on Splice and just dropped it in here and set it up so that it's dropping on the 1, but then the second time it's coming in, it's like dropping in on the half measure there. Then the third time it's coming in on the 2. Then the second time it's coming on the 2.5, and then it resets so that it's coming on 1. So it's like a weird kind of like almost like polyrhythm that's happening. But since it's just like such a mellow, chilled out chord, it doesn't sound too annoying, I guess. It sounds smooth. So in terms of the processing, what I did is I have the spectral resonator on. It's set to C sharp, which I believe is somewhat in the key of this tune, which is G sharp, and added such as this chorus effect. So if we turn it off and on, it's pretty subtle. actually kind of like it without it too, to be honest. But Spectral Resonate is an interesting plugin. You can definitely start to make your stuff sound more unique with using that. Then we're removing a bunch of the lows to make room for the kick and the bass. We have a one knob sidechain going on here. And if you want to learn a little bit more about this is essentially like the channel strip that I have that goes automatically on each one of my tracks as I'm building it, because I'm almost always going to be removing some lows, potentially doing some transient shaping, usually adding in sidechain, usually adding in some saturation to fill out the tune a bit, and usually doing some width to move it out of the middle and move it to the sides, fill it out more and make space for the stuff in the middle. If you want more, it's like a dedicated video on how I go about mixing as you go and how you can build your own customized channel strip, let me know and I will go into that. But for this particular track, main thing is the lows are being removed, we have some sidechain going on, and I have this utility that is increasing the volume at certain points of the tune. It's just the volume automation. It's basically what's happening. The idea is to, if you're going to have the volume change throughout the track, it's better to do it on a utility strip like this using the gain instead of doing it right here on the channel strip, because if you need to make any slight adjustments as you go, it makes it really messy. So we started with this. I started with this one, and it didn't seem quite enough, so I panned it a bit to the left and wanted to add an additional chord layer. We'll turn on the next layer that I ended up adding. And so what this is, you can hear it, another kind of rose kind of sound that I found in the same key. And what I did is I cut it up a bunch and threw it on, I cut it up to change the chord notes so that it's playing nicely with the bass line, basically. In terms of the processing on this, I have the same spectral resonator kind of sound on both of these. Removing the lows, one knob sidechain, and again, a little bit of that same gain automation's happening with this one. Basically, in the arrangement part of it, I have it slowly, the volume slowly bringing in the sound. Then in terms of over the group processing, I put them together into a little group called chords. And what I added was this really, really cool plugin called Portal. It's kind of a granular synthesis kind of plugin. And I've created my own little preset of it. So I can show you a video of this if you want to learn how to do this. You can take any kind of third-party plugin that you have and then set up macros on it. So that way, what I have here is usually the mix and the depth is, with this plugin, it sounds interesting to slowly bring in the dry and wet and change that over time. So I set up my own custom little preset where it has an LFO already attached to the mix knob of the plugin, so that with just a couple of changes here, I can make it so that mix knob is slowly cycling through with an LFO. If you want to learn how to do that, let me know. I'll mention it in a future video just dedicated to that. Then I have a compressor going on here with around 3:1 ratio, pretty fast attack, and the release set to auto. I think we're going for between 2, 3, sometimes even 5 decibels of gain reduction, just to kind of tighten up the sound a bit and reduce the dynamic range. And then we're bringing in some back that volume and adding in some fullness with a saturator. That is the chords, and this is really the main kind of idea of the tune here, that it ended up kind of like the direction it ended up heading in. What I did after that was this layer here, which is super interesting. So we listen to it by itself. It's basically a bunch of weird noises, and what's really cool about this is what I did was, I should have this somewhere in here. Over here, what I did was I separated out the instrumental of the Dom Dolla Saving Up track from the drums by plugging it into a tool called lala.ai, so it was able to separate out the instrumentals. And if we just pause the tune here for a second and listen to just this. So that's basically the idea. So I was able to separate all that out from the original track using that AI. And that allowed me to then take little cuts of the instrumental track, and I dropped it into a plugin called Synths. I had to freeze this because Synths is a little heavy. But essentially, I took little stabs from the original tune, dropped it into Synths, and then Synths also uses AI to you try to find options for synthesis based on any audio sample that you drop in. So as you can hear, it's super weird and wild and nothing like how it actually turned out. So sometimes it can be cool where it can sound like it can recreate the audio sample that you plug into it very well, which is super useful, but sometimes it won't. But even when it doesn't, it can come up with some pretty interesting sounds that you can use to create some unique sound design. So that's essentially what each one of these are. If I slowly solo each one, this was one of the slices of the Dom Dolla track, ended up sounding like a little like that. And I slowly added in a bunch of different sounds. And that's how that kind of came to be. So it's an interesting way to use AI to come up with some unique sounds. Then finally, that's all going over top of this, they're all grouped together in this group called AI samples. And what I've done is I set up a spectral resonator and set it to the key of the song that I'm working in, which is G sharp, which then, if I turn this off, if you can hear that, let me solo it again. You can hear how dissonant and weird and creepy that is. But then if you turn on the spectral resonator, you can force the audio into a specific key, which is super cool, super interesting. So I threw that on there to make sure that it's actually in the key of the tune. I used the utility to move the balance of the left. For some reason, I wanted to do that way, which is a little weird, but it is what it is. Then we're moving a bunch of the lows, shelving out some of the highs. Here's a big part of the sound. I'm using this portal granular kind of effect. So I think if I turn that off, it's even weirder. So let's solo this again. So this is the weird AI plugin. And then with a portal sound, which I'm probably using a preset, Pentamin in 5, so it's also doing some kind of like harmonic changes. Again, pushes into more of a smoother sounding, usable sound. It's still weird, but got that. And then doing a bit of one-off sidechain, some one-off saturation to fill up the sound a little bit, and that's the AI samples there. What else do we have here? There is another synth part that I'm going to show you, but what we'll do next is I want to show you the vocals. So I wanted to use a different vocal sample so that I could also release this as an edit. And what I ended up choosing was Donna Summer's I Feel Love. So let's have that come to play in next here. So I use this little swell part. And I believe I had to pitch it down one semitone to make it in key. And what's interesting about that, let me just get a little loop going here so I can explain something without vocals happening. So the Donna Summer song is in, I believe it's like C major, and we are in G sharp minor. And so what I did was I moved it down to B major, and B major is the relative major of G sharp minor, which means that they share the same note. So even though this sample is in the major key, it works against the minor notes of the rest of the composition because it's the relative major, it's sharing the same notes. Music theory stuff, it's probably the one music theory thing that I know pretty well, but that's it. Let's keep listening through to this. And here's the main part. Pretty cool. In terms of the processing, what do we have going on here? This I'll come back to in a moment. I have the spectral resonator in the same key again. Oops, turn that off. That's not part of it. Using the spectral resonator to force it into the right key again. Removing some of the lows. Some sidechain. One knob saturation to fill it out a bit. Using the one knob width to push it to the sides a little. Widen it up. And then I also have this Nectar plugin turning on just some of the notes that I thought were kind of sounding out of key. And that's kind of the song's breakdown there. The last thing I want to show you is what I did do, the synth that we're listening to here that comes into this point. So what I did for this one is I used Synplant once again, and the audio sample that I used to trigger the AI was the actual synth sound from the Donna Summers track, I Feel Love. It sounds different from that original track, but still interesting. Hello again, my friend. Hopefully you found that video useful. If you'd like to follow along yourself with the 5-step song finishing checklist, there will be a link in the description below where you can get access to that completely for free, and it's going to help you finish your songs a lot faster and better than ever before. If you found this video useful, like and subscribe and all that good stuff, but really the best thing I can do for you is hook you up with that free checklist, so make sure you check that one. Other than that, I'll see you in the next video, my friend. Have a good one.